What's up? How's everybody doing? Everybody doing well? Man, it's been a while. I haven't, are y'all with me tonight? It's been a while, and I'm pumped. I'm pumped to be back, and kind of, man, as we get into this and as we talk about this tonight, like I want to start by saying this. I'm really proud of you guys. And I know I say this a lot, and I want you to know that I'm not just saying it to say it to make you feel good about yourself, because usually I just come in here and yell at you for half an hour and then we leave. But I'm really proud of you. I haven't preached in SUB30 in almost 2 months. And used to, what would happen was when I wouldn't preach, the numbers of the people that would come would always just tank. And so it doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter who's preaching. You've had Pastor Keith, and did Pastor Keith do a good job last week? Yes, he's the man. And and super humble. So you've had Pastor Keith, you've had Drew Gard, you've had Pastor James, you've had Pastor Clay in here a lot. And here's what you're gonna see. You're gonna see more guys throughout the summer. You're gonna see Pastor Keith some more. You're gonna see Pastor Charles and Pastor Clay and me and Pastor Stovall and a bunch of different people. And one of the things I'm so proud of you about, and I always say this in here, is because you have learned to receive from different preachers. And I don't know if you understand how big of a deal that is because you're doing it. You know how you don't know something's a big deal when you're doing it? You know what I'm saying? You're like, well, it's no big deal. Like, I'm doing it. Like, it's a big deal. Like, it's a big deal at your age and where you guys are in life that you have already learned to receive from a preacher, regardless of his style, regardless of the way that he talks, regardless of the flow of a sermon that he uses. You have learned to sit under a preacher and know, regardless of the style of a preacher, God is always speaking. And listen, that is rare. Because I have seen people in the past that they would walk in and they would be like, hey, is so-and-so preaching? And you'd be like, no, not today. And they'd be like, oh, okay. And I would literally see them turn around and walk out the front door, like grown behind people. And I'm like, well, I mean, God, it's really just still God. I mean, God's gonna be here. And so like, I'm really proud of you. And when I go places and I travel places and people talk about, they ask me questions about SUB30 and they say, man, how have you guys done what you've done there? And first of all, I always tell them the main important ingredient is my dashing good looks. And hello. And so I always tell them that, and then they punch me and tell me I'm a liar. But the other thing that I tell them is because you guys have grown in maturity. And I'm telling you, man, you have learned a skill that will help you in your walk with God for the rest of your life. And I am proud of you as one of your pastors. I am, and I always talk about it with people. And I want to say this to you. I want to say, not only am I proud of you, but I want to say thank you for learning this. Because you have learned to do this, I'm able to travel and to speak at different churches and to speak to different leadership teams. And because you have grown in maturity, what we are doing is we are helping the body of Christ grow as a whole together, because you're not a bunch of needy Christians. Because you have learned to receive, I'm able to go, just like Celebration, because they have learned to receive, Pastor Stovall is able to go. We're able to go to other churches. We're able to bless their congregations. We're able to speak to their leadership teams. We're able to do trainings. We're able to help the entire body of Christ move forward because you have grown in maturity. Do you understand that? That's a big deal. There's not a lot of churches that do that. And then I want to say thank you from the perspective of a father and a husband. So because you have learned this, there are things that I'm able to do with my family. There are things that I'm able to do with my children that I would not be able to do if I had to be here every week, because I was worried if you would show up to church or not and love Jesus if I didn't preach. And so because of that, I get to do great things with my wife and my kids that help prepare them, not so much my wife, but my children, for where they're going in life. And so what I want to do is, can we turn David down a little bit? You're so loud, dude. I just kind of like want to groove a little bit like when I'm talking, but I can't move my hips like this because something happens in Paul. I don't want to talk about it. And so it's like you're in my head. And it's a big head. So you got a lot of room to work with. And so I want to share with you where I was last week. And if you follow me on Instagram or Twitter or whatever, I'm just going to tell you right now, all you're going to see is pictures of my kids. So if you follow me on Instagram, it's just my children and my wife. And so last week, when I wasn't here and Pastor Keith was preaching, I was with my son. My son recently turned, or is getting ready to turn in like a week, at the end of this week, 10 years old. I have a 10-year-old. And so I go to him and I'm thinking to myself, man, 10. That's a big one. You know what I mean? Like, remember you remember when you hit double digits? I mean, double digits, like you're ready to roll. And so I went to him and I'm like, son, you're turning 10. What would you like to do for your 10th birthday? And we have season or year passes to Disney. And so I'm thinking that he's going to say, I want to go to Disney or I want to go to Universal and ride roller coasters. And so I'm thinking to myself, great, I'm going to be nauseous for 2 days. Because every time I get off a roller coaster, I'm like, I'm going to vomit on somebody. And so I'm thinking that that's what he's going to say. And my son looks at me and he said, Dad, for my 10th birthday, I want to go hiking on the Appalachian Trail and I want to go whitewater rafting. And I said, son, I feel the spirit. And I said, oh, and I got weak kneed. It just so happens that at this time I was talking to him about his 10th birthday. I was reading this book called Raising a Modern Day Knight. And what this book talks about is it talks about in cultivating a young man to become a man of God, that you need to give him rites of passage. Just like when a young squire would end up becoming a knight, there were these different rites of passage that he would go through to know this part of my life is over and now I'm stepping into this part of my life. And so I thought to myself, this is the perfect opportunity to do one of these rites of passage with my son at 10 years old. I mean, it's just going to be he and I out in the woods. We're going to be whitewater rafting. It's going to be awesome. And so I have a couple of pictures I want to share with you from our trip. This first picture is a picture of an awesome beard. You see that thing? God, so legit. I looked at myself in the mirror yesterday. I had to cut it. I kind of look like Abe Lincoln. And I was like, I saw like a profile. I was like, that's got to go. And so this is a picture of my son and I, Aiden. We were at some waterfalls. We ended up hiking this 5-mile loop one day to these waterfalls up in Cherokee, North Carolina. This next picture right here is a picture of us on the top of a mountain called Rocky Bald Ridge. And we actually ended up staying there and camping there that night. And it was so cool. We had hiked 3 miles. We came up to this rock face and we were overlooking the Smoky Mountains behind us, and we had the big backpacks on. We did 13 miles in 2 days, and he was like, Dad, can we just camp here? Can we stay here tonight? And I was like, yeah, son. So we put our bag up. I got my pistol, put it on my side. I said, let's roll. And so we stayed up there, and we're literally on a rock face overlooking the mountains. And this picture right here is actually the sunrise of when we woke up the next morning, and it was so cool. I woke up and I went out there because I'm 32 now and sleeping on the ground makes my body hurt and on my hip. And so I woke up and I went out and I looked at the rock face and at the sunrise. I was like, that's crazy. And so I went and woke my son up. I said, Aiden, you got to come see this. And he came out and he was like, he'd never seen anything like that in his life. And he was like, Dad, I've never seen anything like this. Can I go get back in the sleeping bag? It's really cold. Like the moment died like that, you know? Yes, son. No, okay, all right, cool. 10 now? No, don't want me to hold you? All right, cool. And so there's another part of this trip that was really cool, and it's this picture right here. And that's a picture, looks like he's sitting up, but he's laying down in a tent and he's reading a letter. That letter was actually written by, I think, Justin Todd, who you guys know is one of our SUB30 leaders. On this trip, I had 15 pastors and leaders write my son letters on what it means to be a man of God and what they see in him. Pastor Stovall wrote one, Charles wrote one, Justin, Clay, Layton, Ryan Hodges, Dougie, all these guys, Jeff McDuffie, they wrote him these letters of what it means to be a man of God and what they see in him. And what was so amazing is my son cried over every letter he read. He's 10, like I'm thinking he's gonna be like, yeah, great, can I go get a tomahawk now or something? And he sat there, Pastor Keith wrote him one, and he cried over every one of these letters. And so we were driving home, we literally went whitewater rafting on Wednesday. We walked off the river, we got in the car and we began driving back to Florida. And I was thinking to myself, I'm like, dude, what was your favorite part of the trip? We were gone for 5 days. I'm thinking whitewater rafting. I bought him weapons because every good father should buy his son weapons. I bought him a blowgun. If you have never seen a 10-year-old shoot a blowgun for the first time, you're not living. You cannot shoot that at your sister. And so we were riding home, and I said, son, what was your favorite part of the trip? He said, Dad, my favorite part of the trip was reading the letters that all those men had written me and what they see in me, and you praying over me. And there was a night where I prayed over him as my son. I prayed a blessing over him, and I prayed that God would break any strongholds that had formed in his life by me being a crappy dad and yelling at him at times. Seriously, so I prayed, God, please don't let me screw him up.